All quotes are primary sources and actual descriptions of patients with mental illnesses in the 19th century. Due to the offensive nature, viewer discretion is advised.
Devoted, determined, dedicated. Dorothea Dix, Crusader for the mentally ill.
Helpless, forgotten, insane, idiotic. Was a norm on how people viewed the mentally ill. Today, this would be shocking. However, in the mid-19th century, men and women were being sunk into prisons and wrenched in almshouses. Many of the conditions they suffered were a state of misery and humiliation. The mentally ill were being put at a big disadvantage of physical and mental improvement due to the cruelty and disrespect they were receiving from the staff. After 40 years of seeing the horrific conditions in which they were living, Dorothea Dix started the protest of establishing state hospitals for the mentally ill in North Carolina starting in 1841.
After noticing the cruel and unjust treatment of people with mental illnesses in asylums and prisons, Dorothea Dix began the asylum movement, which led to the discovery of better treatment and the first fair mental asylums in the United States. At the beginning, Dix explored different types of mental illnesses and encountered setbacks and discrimination against the people who were mentally ill. As a result, she exchanged her ideas and beliefs with effective policies and leaders, which led to her success.
When our country was first founded, we didn't know what to do with people with mental illnesses. So what would happen is loved ones would take their family member with serious mental illnesses and drop them off at the local jail. When a wonderful woman by the name of Dorothea Dix was visiting a Boston jail, and she came across a group of 14 men who were literally freezing to death. So she went to see the jailer afterwards, and she said to him, like, who are these men? Why are they here, and why are you treating them this way? And his response was, they're not here on charges, I'm not getting paid for them, what do you want me to do? And this one woman, this one person was so outraged at what she saw, she began a movement called
Dorothea Dix was a social reformer whose contributions to the mentally ill led to the widespread of international reforms. Her parents were the main influence, but it was mostly her father. Joseph Dix was a religious fanatic that taught his daughter the value of equality due to their Unitarian belief. At the age of 14, Dix began teaching school, and around 17 years old, in 1819, she founded the Dix Mansion, which was a school for girls as well as a charity school that poor girls could attend for free. As she grew older, in 1824, she started to write textbooks about her life's journey. In 1841, Dix started teaching Sunday school at the East Cambridge Jail, a women's prison, which inspired her to become an activist for the mentally ill. Noticing the treatment the prisoners were receiving, primarily those with mental disabilities, she began to travel around the country documenting the conditions and treatments of patients.
Weigh the iron chains and shackles and balls and ring bolts and bars and manacles. Breathe the foul atmosphere of those cells and dens. Examine the furniture of those dreary abodes. Some for a bed have the luxury of a truss of straw. Examine their apparel. The air of heaven is their only vesture. Are you disquieted and pained to learn these facts? The revolting exposure of men, the infinitely more revolting and shocking exposure of women. Do you start and shrink from the grossness of this recital? What then is it to witness the appalling reality?
After touring 14 states and visiting multiple asylums and hospitals, she recorded the unjust treatment in each place. According to one of her textbooks, prisons and asylums would treat their patients or prisoners differently, though they shared common and humane practices. The majority of insane persons were
In cages, closets, cellars, stalls, pens, chained naked, beaten with rods and lashed into obedience. A case of an insane person who had been very highly excited was chained and kept in a cell in a rigid confinement to weaken the muscular fiber.
one main factor in which cruelty took place was in hospitals. In a Springfield jail, a
Lunatic.
woman slept in a
Dreary, unfurnished room.
In another jail in Dedham, a couple of females often slept
In wooden bunk filled with straws.
People with mental illnesses faced different types of discriminations. People were categorized based on their types of disabilities. Some people in their communities labeled them in derogatory terms. They also faced institutional discrimination in jails, asylums, and hospitals because of their illness and harm to others. In most cases, they were confined without their consent.
4 days.
What? Day and night?
No, at night we take him off and strap him upon the bed,
How long will you keep him so?
till he is quiet.
How long have you ever kept a patient in this condition?
9 days, I believe, is the longest.
As a result of the unjust treatments and discrimination, Dix advocated for the mentally ill. After all her traveling and seeing the conditions the mentally ill were living upon, she took a stand. In 1848, Dix asked Congress to grant
12 million acres of land as a public endowment to be used for the benefit of the mentally ill as well as the blind and the deaf.
After getting the bill approved by both houses of Congress, the bill got vetoed by President Franklin in 1854 due to budget cuts. Facing this huge setback, Dix traveled to Europe and met with Pope Pius IX. After hearing about her investigation and reports, he personally ordered the construction of hospitals and asylums for the mentally ill. Dix's actions and beliefs played an instrumental role in the asylum movement. The asylum movement was viewed as a consequence of spiritual problems which caused mental maladies. Although the movement started around the mid-1800s, Dix has offered an awareness of patients' conditions that will reform the movement. Dix helped improve ways of treating patients by cupping, purging, and bleeding. Another way in which the mentally ill improved was in their hospitality. They went from sleeping in deplorable conditions to sleeping in hospital beds with humane treatments.
After the movement, employees would spend more time getting to know the patients and their medical history and background.
Sir, I cannot but think from the gentle, manly manner you treated me while I was with you, you will be glad to hear from me, and I do assure you I shall always feel the most sincere gratitude and affection for you, and the other officers connected with the hall. The kind and manly course pursed by you and all in your authority is calculated to reform anyone that has the least spark of honesty left in this art. I have, by sad experience, found that any but an honest and upright course will lead to wretchedness and misery.
The few hospitals available were refined by having better treatments. Over time, the most influential change was Dorothea Dix's movement in the modern world because it changed the way society saw people who were mentally disabled. Today, we show more respect towards the people with a mental illness. For instance, instead of referring to them as mentally insane, we refer to them as a person with a mental disability.
Dorothea Dix's contribution towards the mentally ill has been significant in the modern world. Some positive outcomes that were led from her contributions into society has changed the way we look at the mentally ill. In the mid-1800s, people viewed the mentally ill as dafts with an uncurable disease. Today we have more respect towards the people with mental illnesses such as depression, schizophrenia, and anxiety, because we now know due to studies that in some cases the illnesses are genetically transferred and cannot be cured but are treatable. Today's mental hospitals have specialized psychologists and psychiatrists for anyone with an illness in need of any help. We also have more advanced medications and treatments to attend people with the best possible care. Although we have improved mental health in a huge way, we still have room for improvement when dealing with the mentally ill.